Nashville, raising Nashville, raising Nashville, raising Nashville.
Welcome to Raising Nashville. I'm Bucky.
Juicebox.
Oldboy.
And we do know that it is January and it is cold, and what we like to do on Raising Nashville is keep topics relevant, especially when we're talking about cities and parenting and things like that. We've done a pretty good job. And we're not even a year into this podcast yet, and we have something exciting to tell you guys. This has finally paid off for us. We have built this loyal listenership over the last, 9 months. And,
Right.
We've had people come out to the Red Door during the holidays. We have had giveaways for autographed pictures of us going to Nashville Nightmare. But our loyal listenership has come through, and we couldn't be more excited. So what we wanted to do is record an episode about something we just got invited to. All three of us have been, but never in this capacity.
Or together. And the fact that we all get to go together is super exciting because we don't get to, we get to do this together, but we don't get to get out together often. So I'm pumped about this.
And I know you guys are just riddled with anticipation about what we're talking about. We have a loyal listener, and his name is, and he has actually invited us to the 146th running of the Kentucky Derby.
Yep.
Not only invited us, like not paying $50 or $75 to go stand in the infield or on the paddock. We are in a box with our loyal listener, and we couldn't be more excited.
Right. And we vetted this dude to make sure it's a real thing. It's a legit thing.
We've seen the tickets.
It's the real deal.
We have. And I'm just shaking with excitement right now because
it's really hard to get a box seat for the Derby.
It's expensive.
It is very expensive, and even beyond just the money, it's tough to just get one.
Absolutely. So with that being said, and our excitement, we couldn't wait to bring to you a Kentucky Derby episode based around the first Saturday in May.
Yep.
And what we're going to do, guys, this week is we are going to actually record this, and then we're going to attend the Kentucky Derby. So there's going to be a good 5 months, 4 to 5 months of time lapse here. And then the Monday or the Sunday after the Kentucky Derby is over, if we're well enough at that point from the night before.
Let's say we're going to record that on Monday.
Okay, on Monday after the Kentucky Derby, we're going to record a follow-up to this just so you all have it in one episode talking about our experience, which is going to be amazing.
Yep. Yeah. Get this out of the way. That way we don't want to be too hungover to get through the history and everything we're about to cover. So, yeah.
And with it being the first Saturday in May, what we like to do on Raising Nashville podcast is bring to you, as always, a history kind of to bring you up to speed about what we're talking about. So what we're going to do is we're going to roll through some Kentucky Derby history for you guys.
Yep.
Then we're going to have some, fun facts. We're also going to tell you how, and we know it's called Raising Nashville. We're going to tell you how the Kentucky Derby actually relates to Nashville. But before we get into this, again, let's go ahead and title this episode
First Saturday in May.
It means so many things to so many people, especially in the Southeast. And what we're going to do is I'm going to kick it over to Oldboy, and he's going to run you through a brief history of the Kentucky Derby.
All right. So as the only one here not from Kentucky, I'm
not
going to take
true.
you a little bit through the history. So forgive me if I get anything wrong to you Kentuckians. So historically, as we've mentioned, it's held on the first Saturday in May, capping off a 2-week-long Derby festival, which I learned a little bit about but won't dive into. The Derby is a Grade 1 stakes race for 3-year-old thoroughbreds, and the race itself is 1 1/4 miles or 2 kilometers held at Churchill Downs. It's known as the Run for the Roses and the most exciting 2 minutes in sports. Furthermore, it is the first leg of the American Triple Crown, followed by Preakness Stakes and Belmont Stakes. And I had a quick question for you guys. Would you rather go to Preakness or would you rather go to Freaknik in Atlanta? And that was That's a real question.
I've never been to either, but I think I would be
Choose. You got to choose one.
Freaknik.
Definitely. So, the Kentucky Derby has been held uninterrupted since 1875, which is very impressive.
146 years.
Yeah.
Which is very cool.
There's,
All right.
Yeah, there's nothing that's going to stop it at this point. I mean, if war didn't stop it, if the Great Depression didn't stop it, what will? You know?
Nothing can stop this thing. That's just awesome. So, real quick, I'm going to dive into the history. So, in 1872, Colonel Meriwether Lewis Clark Jr., who is the grandson of William Clark of the Lewis and Clark Expedition, went to England, specifically in Surrey and Epsom, where the Derby, they have the Derby, had been running annually since 1780. Then he traveled to Paris to visit the Trench Jockey Club, established 1863. They organized the Grand Prix de Paris at Longchamp, at the time the greatest race in France. All right, so he's going around studying up, doing his due diligence on these other races, high stakes races. So I'm not going to say Colonel Meriwether Lewis Clark Jr. every time. So he's just going to be fucking Mary.
Please do.
No. Mary, so he came home and
Mary.
formed the Louisville Jockey Club to raise money for racing facilities, which became Churchill Downs, named after John and Henry Churchill, who provided land for the grounds, and it officially became Churchill Downs in 1937. But anyway.
1937?
Yeah, officially. Yeah, it was already called Churchill Downs, but it officially, per Wikipedia and HistoryChannel.com.
We do our research.
The Kentucky Derby was first run at 1.5 miles, or 12 Edward furlongs, or 2.4 kilometers.
Is that current day Edward Furlong or 1992 Edward Furlong?
92
Terminator Edward Furlong.
to 92 furlong.
Okay.
Which is the same distance as the Epsom Derby, but in 1896 it officially changed to the 1.25 mile. All right, so the first Derby was held on May 17th, 1875. There were 15 horses, and they're all 3-year-old thoroughbreds raced in front of a crowd of 10,000 people.
Which seems like a lot of people for 1875.
No
Maybe
doubt.
I'm
Has
wrong.
to be.
No doubt.
Maybe I'm wrong, but that seems like a lot of people.
So Oliver Lewis was the jockey. Aristides, I'm probably mispronouncing that, was the horse, and they won the very first Derby in 1875. But business for the actual Derby floundered until about 1902, when Colonel Matt Wynn created a conglomeration of business owners that took over. Now, I do want to point out, everybody in Kentucky is a fucking colonel, by the way. That's really when it became the preeminent stakes race in the U.S. is when Matt Wynn took it. So
I want to say that I am not a colonel, but now I'm going to look into it because I want to be known as Colonel Juicebox on this podcast from then on.
If you move out of state, you're automatically disqualified.
Oh, really? Well, crap.
I don't know that. I'm not from Kentucky. So the Triple Crown, real quick, I'll just give a little Triple Crown update. To be considered a Triple Crown winner, you have to win the first race, Kentucky Derby, Preakness, and Belmont. But the Triple Crown was officially created in 1930. Now, in 1919, there was a horse, Sir Barton. He actually won all 3 races, but it wasn't actually recognized as the Triple Crown. He won it in 1919, and actually the horse itself, Sir Barton, became a colonel. And also 1930, real quick, I'm about to do a quick run on some history, but also in 1930 was when they officially made it the first Saturday in May. Was Derby Day. It'd been some different. It was like mid-May at that prior. So in 1925 was the first radio broadcast of Derby on WHAS and WGN in Chicago, and that automatically makes me think of the plot of The Sting, where they paste or post the recording.
Yeah. There's a lot of OTBs in Chicago. What I've noticed when I go there, off-track betting.
Yeah.
So they were ahead of it.
Yeah, no doubt. So anyway, 1949 was the first televised coverage by an NBC affiliate. 1952, national coverage by a CBS affiliate. 1970, Diane No Chump Crump became the first female jockey to ride the Derby, and she became a colonel. And 1973, a little horse by the name of Secretariat broke the fastest race record, clocking in at 1 minute 59.4 seconds. yet to be broken.
It still holds that record.
Yep.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, huge. Yeah. I mean, clearly
He's the LeBron James of the Kentucky Derby, or the Michael Jordan. Not LeBron James. Let me take that back. He's the Michael Jordan of the Kentucky Derby.
Okay. Yeah, I agree. 2005, the purse distribution now includes first through fifth finishers, whereas previously it had just been first through fourth. 2019, $3 million is now the purse money in distribution. Whereas in 96 it was 1 million, 2005 it was 2 million.
I think it's funny that and we can talk about this a little bit more, but the year that they boost up the pot and the winner is the year that they have the first controversy of the winner and a first disqualification of a horse.
I'm glad that you brought that up, because that is it just fuels the excitement for me, is the fact that we're getting to attend this year. As last year we all watched it from Nashville. And it was the biggest debacle in the Kentucky Derby history. And I remember I want to go see something like that. Now, I know a lot of people said that this probably will never happen again, because it was unprecedented. We all waited, 10 minutes between the final?
At least it seemed like it was forever. And then it was just it's one of those things. To me, I don't know about you guys, if you were paying attention, it felt like it was like a holding call in football.
Sure.
It's like one of they're like, okay, yeah, this horse kind of got in front of this other horse, but it's like you could call that 100,000 times during a race, it seems like.
Yeah,
no kidding.
It was very interesting. I think it was all on the jockey,
right?
And I don't know, great for the horse that won. I can't remember the horse's name.
Second Chance.
It was not that. That's a good
I
one.
I would be hollering conspiracy if that was the case.
One of the great things about the Kentucky Derby is that not a lot of people know this, but it is actually related to Nashville in a way. And, if you are new to Nashville, or one of the now, I think according to the census we're going through, 87 people who move here every day, you might not know that the Kentucky Derby is very closely related to the Belmead Plantation. So I want to go through the relation of that really quick, because there's some interesting stuff here. In 1807, now this is, the Kentucky Derby started in 1875. In 1807, a guy named John Harding buys a cabin in 250 acres slightly west of Nashville. He calls it the Belmead Plantation. It stands for beautiful meadow in French. So he loved the land that he had.
Say it in your best French accent.
But Belmead Plantation or Beautiful Meadow?
Belmead Plantation.
Give me an example of a French accent.
Oui, oui.
No, you can't do that.
Go ahead.
I've got one other quick question. What was the guy's name again?
John Harding.
Did he tell people that he lived in Nashville?
Oh, no. No, because maybe he did. But he named his plantation Belmead. And it was known for raising livestock. They grew cotton. They operated sawmills. There were some blacksmiths on property. And obviously, this is pre-Civil War. So there was some, slave labor that was doing most of, the work on the plantation.
Let's say everything.
Probably everything. So 9 years later, in 1816, John Harding becomes kind of bored with what's going on in his plantation. He starts boarding horses for other people. More notably, Andrew Jackson kept his horses on Belmead Plantation's farm. So he's boarding these horses, and like I said, the story goes he's kind of bored. So he starts developing these straight stretch races for these horses, and he gets some of the more, I guess, smaller, if that's a appropriate term here, slaves, to start riding these horses and racing them.
Size challenged?
Size challenged. There you go. And they were racing these horses on the property, just straight stretches. And that kind of snowballed and just kept getting bigger and bigger. 1839, again, we're still, 40-something years away from the Kentucky Derby. John Harding passes on his farm to William Harding, his son, who actually buys 5,400 additional acres. Now, this was 250 acres. Then he just comes in, he inherits this Belmead Plantation and buys the surrounding 5,400 acres. So at this point, it is massive. And
so let me just throw something out here real quick. we're all bored sometimes. We get into we try to pick up hobbies. We do different things. This guy got so bored and had so much money and land. His hobby was just to start racing horses and find people to ride these horses as fast. Like that's,
Damn.
I can't even wrap my mind around that.
That's the 1%.
Yeah, you're right.
Yeah, for sure.
I
You're
mean,
right.
this guy has everything that he needs, so he becomes bored.
You're right. That's just naive of me to not understand that.
So they continue to race horses for about 40 years. Now, let's fast forward to, I'm going to jump forward and I'm going to jump back. I'm going to get in the DeLorean here for a second. In 1875, that's the first year the Kentucky Derby ran, right, old boy?
True.
And then at that same year, Harding decided to retire his racing skills on the property because I think that he knew that something big was coming in a northern state. So he retired his skills and he started breeding horses. So he figured that he could make more money instead of people coming to watch his horses run. He could make more money actually breeding horses and selling them to people. But in 1873, 2 years prior to the Kentucky Derby, William Harding obtains a horse called Bonnie Scotland. This horse is from the UK. It actually had won some races. He was traveling over there to attend some races as well. So he buys Bonnie Scotland in 1873. Then he goes back in 1881 and buys the first American-bred horse to win the Epsom Derby, which you mentioned earlier,
Right.
the biggest derby in the world. The first American-bred horse to win that, he buys that. He brings them both to his farm. He starts studding. And at this time, the studding fees in 1892 were $2,500 a shot.
My God.
So every time you wanted to bring your horse and breed it with these stud horses, these are well-known horses. They've won races. They have a thick bloodline, rich history. So he has Bonnie Scotland and a horse called Iroquois, which famously was deemed the horse race here in Nashville, the steeplechase. Iroquois steeplechase is named after that horse. Bonnie Scotland's bloodline is still relevant today. Most notably, the 2018 winner of the Kentucky Derby, Justify, can be traced back to that horse that resided on Belmead Plantation.
Wow.
Yeah. Not only that, Bonnie Scotland has actually, the bloodline has produced winners such as Man o' War, Seabiscuit, Secretariat, the most famous horse to ever run, Seattle Slew, Affirmed, and Justify. Even further, this is an insane fact. This one horse that resided on Belmead Plantation that is known for this bloodline.
Mr. Ed?
No, it's
It's spawned the first talking
Yeah.
horse.
Mr. Ed might have come from Bonnie Scotland, but no. Here's a fun fact. Every horse that ran in the 2018 Kentucky Derby came from Bonnie Scotland or has that bloodline in their system. Every single one.
Huh. That's crazy. Is that...
It is.
I feel like you're running into a lot of inbreeding at that point, right? Am I wrong about that?
Running into each other, just head first.
I hope not.
This horse is a pure blood. It can't see. It can't run straight.
So the other horse that I mentioned that they bought in 1881, Iroquois, which however you want to pronounce it, depends on if you're listening to pop music of the 90s or you didn't get that?
Just keep
I-
going.
yeah.
Jamiroquai. Iroquois, God, I can't even say it now. Iroquois is one of the 5 bloodlines that are required to run in the Kentucky Derby every single year. I did not know that.
I didn't know that either. What does
It's a
that mean?
prerequisite to be related?
Correct. In order to run in the Kentucky Derby every year, you have to come from one of 5 bloodlines from horses.
That doesn't seem right.
It doesn't, but I did the research again. HistoryChannel.com.
They want thoroughbred, so you have to have the genealogy, I guess, of that horse. So it's all, it's just all something to talk about.
So there could just be some badass horse from the other side of the tracks, and they're just not even going to let him take a
Nope.
chance in the Derby.
Nope.
Sure.
I'm thinking a movie's writing itself here.
No doubt.
So with that being said, we definitely wanted to run through the history, tell how it relates to Nashville. And now most of you have been waiting for this because we know some of you have been, some of you know stories, some of you know, kind of some things about the Kentucky Derby that just stand out. So what we've tasked Juicebox with this week is to bring the funny. And that is some fun facts about the Kentucky Derby because there are some odd things that go on. There's some historic things that go on. There's some, people that attend.
Yeah, anything with this rich of a history's got some fun, interesting things about it. Too,
And the fact that almost 100,000 people, 120,000 people attend every year.
It's way more than that, actually. They set
Oh,
a
is it?
record a couple of years ago that was 170,000. But no, I just want to talk about, because it is such an event, and like growing up in Kentucky, like I wasn't really big into the Kentucky Derby. I grew up in Lexington. We had Keeneland, we had horse racing there, and it was like, obviously it was a big thing, but our family wasn't really that big into it, so I wasn't super interested in it.
Not everybody is.
But that being said, every time Derby came around, it was like a big event. It was on TV. They were doing a live setup from the track every day. That day they were showing like all the celebrities and all the people that had come into town, all the events. So that's the thing that you associated with it. At least for me, growing up, was like, oh, this is a big time event that a lot of celebrities go to.
Sure.
So I started to like look into some of the more notable celebrities that have gone, because you think it's like this super glamorous event. So there has actually been 8 presidents that have attended. Nixon went in 1969. He's actually the only president that went while he was president. Other people were either before or after they were president. H.W. Bush has been 3 times, 93, 95, and 2000. W went in 2000 the year before he was president. Jimmy Carter went in 83. Gerald Ford actually went 13 times to the Derby. Yeah, I was looking it up. It was like he went in the early 70s, and then from like 77 through 87, maybe even longer than that, he went for like a 10-year stretch, and then a couple other random ones here and there. So he was a fan.
I only know one person that's been more than 13 times.
Me too. Lyndon Johnson went in 1952. Reagan went in 1969 with Nixon when Reagan was the governor of California. And actually, Trump went in 1999 with Melania before he was actually married to her, apparently.
Do you think Trump will go this year?
I don't know, man. Maybe.
The only reason I ask...
Well, do you think the horses are going to wrestle?
Is he into wrestling?
Oh, he's into wrestling.
He's
he's into wrestling.
I know. No, he's actually set to drive the pace car.
He's not going to drive it.
No, wait, let me rephrase. He's set to ride in the pace car for the Daytona 500 this year, which is the first president to ever do that. So you'd think that he would be Nixon-esque in attending the Kentucky Derby.
This is way
while
out.
president.
Go ahead.
I'm just going to derail it for a second. How long do you actually think it's been since Donald Trump has driven a car?
That was going to be my question. Do you think he's actually driven a car? I mean, he's from New York, so
man, I don't
he's
know.
rich.
Yeah.
I think his family was rich before he may have never driven a car.
I'd say he probably hasn't driven a car in 30 years.
I think that would be my next press question as a journalist.
Okay, so I want to jump into just some of the celebrities.
Yeah,
that
presidents are okay, but I want to talk about
I thought that was
celebrities.
interesting because, presidents, we always see presidents at like March Madness and stuff like that.
Sure.
So to only have 8 or 9 or however many people I said that a president said had attended this, I feel like it's kind of relevant.
Yeah. Sure, but this is the opportunity for celebrities to get dressed and dolled up, wear these huge hats, come with the suits and everything. So I'm more interested in that.
Okay, well then I guess I'll start with like probably the number one biggest celebrity to go to Derby, and that would be Kid Rock.
Has to be, right?
Without a doubt, and he's attended several times.
He's been?
Yeah, he's been a few times.
Okay.
Oh man, how big are his hats?
I mean, he just wears that same old what do you call that? A fedora that he just always wears. Like he wears his Kid Rock hat.
Oh, okay.
He wears his Kid Rock hat.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
I bet he's dressed to the nines. That is big because he has the biggest bar in downtown Nashville, so that's got to be the biggest celebrity to us.
Yeah, I mean easily.
So my question would be, do you think he ever attended when Joe C. was with him? Did he ever take a date?
I looked into that. I could not get any confirmation that Joe C. had attended the Kentucky Derby.
Well, we hope he has.
I heard he's got a big plot of land off of Brick Church Pike or White Ridge Road, something like that.
Okay.
And I was just wondering if you guys think maybe he races big donkeys out there.
Okay, so anyway, some of the other celebrities that have attended the Derby: Bobby Brown. And let me say that I'm not talking about Millie Bobby Brown from Stranger Things. I'm talking about Bobby Brown from the 80s.
Okay, was he with Whitney?
No, Whitney is already dead. He was there in 2018.
So he waited.
He was there. Yeah, he waited. He was looking rough and sweaty. Let's see. Who else? You got the staples, Tara Lipinski and Johnny Weir there every year, looking fabulous.
Yeah, they're pretty much on the mics now, right?
They are.
They just interview people.
You've got Anthony Anderson.
Wait a minute, the guy that's in Blackish?
Yeah.
Okay.
You've got Harry Connick Jr.
Yep, that's a big one.
You've got my personal favorite, and I would have put him up higher, honestly. Larry Burkhead. He is the guy that they always show pictures of every year because he's the guy that knocked up Anna Nicole Smith and had a baby with her. So he is at the Derby every year.
Wait, the old guy?
No. Reggie Jackson actually attended the Derby.
I'm pretty sure I saw Reggie Jackson that year.
That was a year that I went with you, and I don't think that was Reggie Jackson.
Had to have been Reggie. I'm gonna get the picture.
He was taking pictures with people.
Nick Lachey, Guy Fieri, Cyndi Lauper went. That's all right.
Wait a minute, Guy Fieri. That sounds familiar.
Did you guys have a Guy Ferrari run in?
I feel like we did. I was extremely drunk, but I do think I ran into a Food Network personality.
I mean, I remember those tips.
Those frosty tips.
The frosty tips. Yeah. I remember something. It was either that or, some rando.
Did he
I'm
give
seeing
you,
double at that point.
Did he give you like a jalapeno bacon burger or something?
He did. He just pulled it out of his pocket and said, I whipped this up in the bathroom.
With some flavor sauce.
Let's see. A couple other big names. Ice-T.
Ice-T.
Tori Spelling. Josh Groban.
I think what you're saying is
Jermaine Dupri.
This is a really classy event.
It is.
Carson Daly.
Yeah, these are all major celebrities that you're going through right now.
I mean, it doesn't get any more top tier than Carson Daly.
No, this is the culture of the United States. These are the leaders of our culture.
When you told me Gerald Ford went 13 times in a row, I was like, all right, man.
Well, he went 10 times in a row. Let's not get crazy.
Okay. Well,
real quick though, also I'm kind of joking around with this, but like the Queen of England attended in 2007.
That's pretty cool.
That's a big deal.
Yeah, that was huge. There was other royalty that's attended like throughout the thing.
I don't think that's as big as Carson Daly, but it's a big deal.
Well, and no one's as big as Kid Rock. So
that's true.
I should have just ended the list there.
She should have just stayed home because if she was competing for biggest celebrity.
Mm-hmm. And I'll just wrap it up. As far as the celebrities go. There's been a few celebrity horse owners. Burt Bacharach owned like 3 or 4 horses at different times. Barry Gordy, the music producer.
Barry Gordy.
George Steinbrenner, that character from Seinfeld. Rick Pitino, who was like a basketball coach or something. Steven Spielberg.
Spielberg had a horse?
Spielberg, yeah, from that movie.
War Horse?
Yeah, War Horse. And then the biggest name on this list, I think, MC Hammer. MC Hammer owned a horse that ran in the Derby in 1994.
How did it do? Did it win?
It did as good as his career after 1996.
Stellar.
So it went very religious.
So, that's the celebrity thing. I feel like one thing, like I said, when I was growing up, I was like, oh my God, the biggest celebrities go to the Derby. And maybe bigger celebrities did go back in the day. But like the past few years, I feel like it's like, the Queen, I guess, is pretty big, but
Ice-T, that's huge.
Okay, so that's it with the celebrities. You can look up and see. There's tons of celebrities that have been and yada yada yada. I want to just run through a couple quick fun facts about the Derby that are just like you may or may not know.
Please do, because I'm so excited.
So the mint julep is like the drink of the Derby, as you guys know. Almost 120,000 mint juleps are served every year over the weekend at Kentucky Oaks and Derby.
And what's
120,000?
And what's the attendance record?
It's one for everybody.
The attendance record is 170,000 people, but this is for Oaks and Derby, so that's 2 day.
Gotcha.
So Derby's like 170 or has been the past, like close to that past few years. Oaks, I can't remember what the numbers are on that. It's not quite as packed, but
it's impressive. It's a lot of drinks.
So it requires 1,000 pounds of mint, 60,000 pounds of ice, and 10,000 bottles of Old Forester mint julep cocktail mix.
Whoa.
So to go on top of that, people are drinking their minds. People are losing their mind drinking. Yeah.
Yes.
So on top of that, everybody's getting hungry. So the amount of food eaten is 142,000 hot dogs, 18,000 barbecue sandwiches, 13,000 pounds of beef, 32,000 jumbo shrimp, 9,000 scallops, 8,000 pounds of potatoes, and 30,000 cookies and 300,000 strawberries.
There's your challenge, Joey Chestnut.
That's not over the weekend. That's for like one day. That's Derby Day. 142,000 hot dogs. The famous Twin Spires were built in 1894. They weren't there in 1875 when it was first built, and it's pretty interesting because I think it was like maybe it was about 10 years ago when they had that huge addition onto it. So the Twin Spires were no longer the tallest part of the Churchill Downs. Like there's now those giant boxes and luxury boxes that tower over it, which is kind of weird. And now they've also built that giant screen in the middle. I don't know if you guys have seen that, but it's a like massive LED screen. Another quick interesting fact, only 3 horses raced in the 1892 Kentucky Derby.
Oh, yeah. I saw that.
I think you may have mentioned that.
I didn't mention it, but I saw it, yeah.
And the winner of that Kentucky Derby was a 15-year-old kid.
I saw that too, right?
He was the youngest person to ever win the Derby, and it was that Derby.
He rode the horse or he was the horse?
Huh?
A 15-year-old kid.
Do you want to take that back?
I didn't know if they called horses kids at some point.
Well, the race is strictly 3-year-old thoroughbred.
Yeah, let me follow it up with this other fact. One thing that was interesting, though, is every horse is deemed to be born on January 1st, no matter what time of year they were born, because it's like that's how they factor off the 3 years. So a horse could really technically be, I guess, over 3 years old or slightly under 3 years old, depending on when they were born.
Right.
I did not know that.
I saw that.
I always thought it was very hard to wrangle up this exact age of horse and run them.
Exactly.
That's why they do it. Yeah.
And like we said, we touched on it a little bit before. But the last year the pot was increased for the winner. And last year was the first time that there had ever been a disqualification of the winner. And I pulled it up. Maximum Security was the one that was disqualified, and Country House is ended up being the winner.
I do remember that.
Which I feel like that was kind of a long shot, or longer shot maybe.
It was. I think there was a lot of money that kind of went down the drain over those 10 minutes or however long it took to make that decision.
I know the payouts were much different between the favorite and who ended up winning.
And there's a lot of people, I'm sure, that were pissed.
Probably a few that weren't.
Yeah, because it is one of the biggest things that people gamble on every year, if not the biggest.
One of them for sure.
For me, it's the WWE Royal Rumble and then the Kentucky Derby.
Makes sense.
Yeah, agreed.
Yeah.
Should we talk about how the Kentucky Derby more or less directly relates to our podcasting?
We can, but what I want to do is because there's a potential of us winning this year. So
okay.
I want to bring that story. We do have a great Raising Nashville podcast story. I want to tie it in once we've attended this year to see if we can win any money here on Raising Nashville. So what we're going to do, I think, we've gone as far as we can go. We've given you the history of the Derby, how it relates to Nashville, some fun facts. Now we're going to hang this thing up, and it's going to be so hard. It's like, a present sitting right in front of you, not being able to open it for 5 months. We're going to hang this thing up. We're going to go to the Kentucky Derby because, again, we want to thank for inviting us to their box this year. We're so excited. We're so pumped. We had to get this on the sound waves as soon as possible just to kind of talk about it. If you don't talk about it, it's going to stay in your system bottled up.
And it's going to be tough to wait, but I have to say this spring, like, we're traveling to California. We've got a couple other like small trips going on. We've got a lot of stuff to keep us busy between now and then. So I think it's going to be tough to wait it out, but It'll go by pretty quick.
I've got WrestleMania coming up. I've got field seats to WrestleMania. I've got box seats to the Kentucky Derby. I feel like I am a 1%er at this point.
Yeah, it sounds like.
I mean, if this is going to be a great year. 2020 is starting off incredible. I am so excited for what this year holds, especially the events we get to do. So right now we're going to hang it up and we're going to revisit you guys, not one day because we're fighting our hangovers, but 2 days after the Kentucky Derby, Oldboy has agreed to record our reaction to the greatest 2 minutes in sports.
So let's hit pause.
Well, that was depressing to listen to. We are back, not from the Kentucky Derby. I don't know about you guys, but I feel like I've been punched in the belly. I feel like this coronavirus has just taken everything from us, including these incredible tickets that we had to this year's Kentucky Derby.
Yeah. Big shout out and still thank you to for inviting us, and we're sorry this happened. So maybe hopefully we see you in when's it been rescheduled?
It's rescheduled for September at this point.
And we don't know if he's going to invite us to the September race. And we don't know if the race is actually going to happen, it really is. We understand staying safe and we understand trying to get this country back, but we also understand the defeating time that we're living in right now. I mean, I didn't get to go to WrestleMania, and now I'm not getting to go to the Run for the Roses, the 146th Kentucky Derby. I'm at a loss for words, and there's really nothing that we can do here except
make mint juleps and get.
That's it. We're gonna make some mint juleps, and we're gonna try to remember the good times, and that's the only way that we thought that we could, complete this episode. Which we can't just sit it on the shelf for another year. We wanted to get it out to you guys, and we wanted something, positive to come from the Kentucky Derby cancellation.
Yep.
So what we decided to do is we want to tell some stories from our previous Derby.
Yep.
But before that, we want to try to kickstart some positivity here by, I know we mentioned in the first part of the podcast that was recorded months ago that Gerald Ford had attended the Kentucky Derby 13 times.
Yep.
And I think I mentioned something, and I said I only know one other person that has attended more than 13 times, and that happens to be Juicebox's lovely wife, Dana.
If the definition of making a pro is doing something once, then Dana is a pro 17 times over because she has been at least 17 times.
Yeah. So let's bring in the 17-time world champion of attending the Kentucky Derby to tell us some stories and get us back in somewhat of a positive mood in such a down time right now. And right now, Juicebox is currently, we're back in Oldboy's garage. So we're practicing some serious social distancing with this questionnaire.
Party house.
We're going to call Dana from 17 houses away and get her perspective on the Kentucky Derby.
Yep.
So with everything we're going through right now, we definitely wanted to bring a ray of positivity towards isolation and the fact that we can't go to certain events anymore. So we've decided to bring Juicebox's wife Dana on to answer some questions and tell us a little bit about the Kentucky Derby and her experiences. Because from what we know, she is probably the longest tenured person to attend the Derby that we do know. So before we get into the questioning, Dana, we want to say thank you so much for continuing to accelerate social distancing by talking to your husband on the phone.
Yes.
So we all know, obviously, we are not attending the Derby on the first weekend in May. With that being said, and I don't know if you can hear the somber tone in my voice, but we want you to kind of give us I don't know, some good stories about the Kentucky Derby that will carry us through the summer until potentially we can attend in September.
First off, though, I want you to tell us how many times exactly that you've been.
Yeah.
Well, I've been to. Well, I'm from Louisville, so not just like the Kentucky Derby, but just horse racing and Churchill Downs in general is something that is really a part of my life and was really a big part of my family and friends growing up. I went to the Derby in my house growing up. We had a house rule that you weren't allowed to go until you were 17 because it's such a shit show.
Yes, they wanted to protect you.
Yes, my mom actually, when she went in high school one time, and all three of you guys have been to the infield, right?
Yeah.
You know how they have those like cinder block bathrooms in the middle,
Oh yeah, down
and
down the
there's
hill.
like a mud pit around it. Yeah, yeah. So those have like been the same since the beginning of time. And my mom in high school was at Derby and was in there, and it was raided. And she, like somebody like busted open the stall and like stole her necklace off of her. So it was a very traumatic experience for her. So that's why we
Wow.
weren't allowed to go in high school. But
Wow.
my parents took us to Oaks, which is the big horse race the day before. They took us every single year. My whole life to Oaks. But then when I was 17, I went to my first Derby, and I went every year until I was 34. So I think that's 17 straight Derbies.
Wow.
And the only reason I stopped was because I had a baby. So it's been something that was always really, really my favorite time of the year at home. I don't think many people understand that Derby. I don't think people understand that it's not just one horse race, that it is a whole day of racing, but just one race is the Derby.
Right.
And that also it is about, it's a 2-week long celebration in Louisville. It kicks off with Thunder over Louisville, which should have been this weekend at home, which is, I think they bill it as like the country's largest fireworks show. And then there's a mini marathon, and there's a hot air balloon race, and there's a parade, and there's a steamboat race between the Belle of Louisville and the Delta Queen of Cincinnati. I mean, there's just, for those solid 2 weeks, there's a party and a celebration every day, and the city kind of shuts down around it. So it's more of a cultural experience and not just, they bill it as the most exciting 2 minutes of sports, but it's the most exciting 2 weeks of the year if it's where you're from.
I also want to throw in there's an air show the same day as Thunder over Louisville, which makes it probably the most American day of every day, except for maybe 4th of July.
Fireworks and the Blue Angels.
Yeah, exactly. You can't beat it.
I do have a question about these steamboat races. Have you ever attended one?
Yes.
It's got to be the slowest race ever, right?
Oh yeah. It's paddle boat. It's like the 2 oldest operational paddle boats in the world. So it's slow. It's just a reason to stand outside and drink. I mean,
didn't we watch that at Captain's Quarters one year or something?
We watched it at Captain's Quarters. You just like sit out on the lawn, drink beer, and like wait for 2 ancient boats to steamroll by.
Sounds like a great time.
We've got some great traditions in Kentucky.
It sounds like Derby is bigger and better than Christmas.
Oh, it is. Like you get the Friday before off school. I think in high school we had Thursday and Friday off, and it's like just anything goes.
Yeah.
It's just for like I said, my parents let us go at 17. I had the mom who, like, if she found out you were at a party, she would call all the other moms. She was a real killjoy. But Derby week, she was like, I don't care.
Right.
Like, I remember one Derby, she, like, had to pry a bottle of tequila out of my best friend's hands, and we were, like, 19, and, like, didn't mind at all. Like, so my parents also always went to Derby.
Okay.
When they were married. And so when I went, like, 17, 18, probably, like, 19 years old, that was always a free ride because the hardest part of Derby is getting to and from. And so my mom was always like, well, we'll drive you. And I was like, great. Well, we would always meet up with my parents, like me and whatever friends went with me, in the on the paddock after the Derby ran. And my parents would be crazy. Like, one year my mom thought she met Meatloaf and was like
probably.
Up.
Hey,
yeah. She tried to sneak us up one time because she said 98 degrees was up at Millionaires Row, and she made me and my 2 best friends like scale the side of this building to like go meet 98 degrees. I mean, it was just like anything went.
Your mom was a big Nick Lachey fan then?
Yeah. She was like, get up there.
It also kind of sounds like the Derby might be the purge. Like anything, it's just lawlessness and debauchery. Maybe not murder or anything, but it is just like, it is.
It's the one day of the year that you're okay if your mom is looking over your shoulder, it sounds like.
Yes. Yeah. I think some good stories too. A guy told me I was the ugliest girl he'd seen all day, and I punched him in the face and broke his glasses.
Yes.
That was an epic derby. We were waiting in line here. I mean, I broke my number one rule that year, which is why I ended up in a fight, was that we didn't have a ride home and we were standing in a cab line.
Which was the that might as well have been the purge. Like that the laws of society were breaking down in that line.
Wait, so your number one rule is to always have a ride from Derby, not punch people in faces?
No, to always have an exit.
Well, always have an exit strategy and don't wear heels. Those are my 2 rules.
It's smart. I think it's genius. Always have an exit strategy.
Otherwise, you're walking about 5 miles before you can get to anything.
No shit.
Yes, and women try and do it in heels, and I'm like, you look like a rookie. My favorite derby ever was 2004 when Smarty Jones won, and it was just an epic thunderstorm, and it was like pictures that I've seen before of the infield, but never truly experienced myself, of it just being a straight mud pit. We were just wrestling and just covered in mud. And I met my now stepdad the very first time after that derby. He and my mom picked me up from my friend's house, and I was like just covered in mud. And he put a tarp down in the back seat, and I was hammered and covered in mud. And I was like, "Who is this guy?" And my mom's like, "This is Steve." And I'm like, "Well, nice to meet you, Steve."
Have you, so in the 7-18, out of your whole experience going to Derby, Dana, have you ever had any Louisville pterodactyl sightings?
There was definitely a Louisville pterodactyl sighting.
Yeah, I've heard rumors.
So Dana, since you're a pro at going to the Derby, we'll say you've done it so many times. According to Bucky, if you do something once, you're
a pro.
You're a pro at it. So you're a pro. You're a pro 17 times over. Can you give us some tips on sneaking alcohol into the Derby?
Well, I mean, that's there. I have a couple tips, but the old tried and true is duct taping a flask or mini bottles to your your upper thigh. That's good. Also, I've cut the lining in my purse and put it in there.
Sweet.
I've known people that there's some different flasks that look like tampons or like packs of cigarettes and things like that I've heard of. But my tried and true is to duct tape it to your leg. And if you go to the Derby, you got to hit up Down the Stretch Lounge, which is a trailer. What is it? Outside of the track.
Yeah, it is. It is definitely a trailer that someone just towed into and put it in the parking lot of the track
and made a bar.
Is that where they have the dildo races?
Yep.
Yes.
Yeah.
Dildo races, and I've duct taped many bottles to legs.
Well, and also,
Stretch Lounge before walking in.
It's also just an open bar that's for charity or whatever. Like, it's any money that you donate to it goes to like some kind of cancer research or something. I can't remember exactly what it was, but it's like totally for a good cause, and people are just having the best time of their life out there. It's more fun than being inside of the Derby.
Yeah, I've known many people who never entered the track after stumbling upon Down the Stretch Lounge.
Yeah.
It is awesome. There's actually a guy there named Joel. Shout out to Joel if he hears this. My sister and I have called him Dad for probably 10 years, I'd say. And every year we see him, we all get really excited. We have tales of when we were kids and how he's we only get to see our dad once a year, and we're so excited. We don't know this guy from Adam. I don't know how this story even started. But every year, my sister and I are so excited to see our dad.
Oh, I got one more question. How many mint juleps do you think you've consumed?
Ooh. How many can I consume, or have I consumed?
What's your capacity, and how many have you consumed total?
I mean, I've probably had, over the course of this many years. Now, it took me a while to get the acquired taste for mint julep, but now I really enjoy it. So I'd say if I'm at Derby, I wouldn't probably get a mint julep if I was at the track otherwise, but I'd say I have like a good 3 or 4 when I'm out there.
Yeah.
They're
Now
expensive.
they do cost like $20.
Yeah,
they-
they're
Yeah.
expensive,
They
but they
ain't
come with the cool glass. And are you a glasser? Are you the person who walks around the track with like 10 glasses stacked on top of each other? Because it's not like
No.
other sporting events when you got plastic cups. I get that. Glass is just, it seems, I know it's a tradition, but it just seems so dangerous for what is going on.
I feel like people who do that are just bragging. You know what I mean?
It's like, I drank
feel
this
it-
many.
like, yeah, they're like 19-year-old braggers. So I don't usually hang on to them. Plus, like, I don't have anywhere to put it. I already told you I cut the lining in my purse for liquor to get in, so I don't have room for glasses.
All right. Well, Dana, thanks so much for coming on and telling us a few stories. It definitely raises our spirits a little bit, or helps us get through this very depressing time, knowing that you
Yeah.
were going to something that was so grand and so awesome, and then all of a sudden the rug is pulled out from underneath your feet, and we have to wait a few more months. Now, before we get out of here, I have one final question. Do you think the Kentucky Derby is going to happen on September 5th?
I don't know, man. I've been thinking a lot about it, and I haven't been paying enough attention to the season in general. I don't know if the other stakes races have happened, because you have to qualify. You have to qualify to be in the Kentucky Derby. So there's a lot of other preliminary races that have to be ran, and I'm assuming they're not running either. So I don't really see how it can happen unless all of that is postponed, throughout the summer. So I'm hopeful. I don't know if it'll happen. I kind of feel like maybe it won't. But I also just feel like if it's not happening on the first Saturday of May, then maybe it shouldn't happen at all, you know?
Yeah, and it'll be the first year in the 146 years of this running that it would potentially not happen. It survived the Great Depression. It survived world wars. But now a virus is going to potentially take it down. We're still hopeful here. We have awesome tickets, so we're ready, and we want it to happen on September 5th. Again, thanks for taking the time to tell a few stories, and we will see you from 6 feet away soon. Well, that was a very interesting interview. I didn't know that there were basically rioters in early Kentucky Derby days.
No kidding. I want to find out more about that story. This is one of those things. It's like you hear the story and now I'm like, what really happened?
Yeah.
So that's the story that you tell somebody when you are a teenager and you fuck something up.
That's right. Yeah.
It's a gang of outlaws. I don't know. They kicked over the bathroom door.
If you lost this necklace your mom bought you, but that's the story that was told. But that interview definitely brought me somewhat out of the slumps of not being able to attend this year. So, with that being said, I'd love to talk about, I know all three of us have been to the Kentucky Derby, which we've said we've never been together, but we have our own individual stories. And
Right.
so to bring light today, we want to tell some of the more interesting stories that have happened to us during the Kentucky Derby.
Sure. So I guess I can go. I've only been once. I only got one story. It's just I think I started drinking for breakfast, and we went. There was a Louisville pterodactyl sighting while I was there, and our
So you
fact,
were there
fact
that
checker
year too?
Charlie can attest to that.
Okay.
Yeah, you were there.
I was.
Yeah, there's rumors. So we got there, and I don't remember much. I'll be honest with you. It's a complete shit show. Just have you ever read Hunter S. Thompson's Derby story?
Yeah.
Do you know who you're talking to?
It's very much dead on. So I don't remember much. However, me and Bucky placed a bet, and we fucking won.
We did, and that is how we talked about this when we recorded in January, that we wanted to save this and compare it to this year.
Right.
Well, now we have nothing to compare it to, so let's bring it to light.
Yeah.
So us three, as we've mentioned on this podcast before, had a previous podcast called Cool Whip and Sugar Cane's Redbox Movie Reviews. We occasionally revive it when we're reviewing a movie on Raising Nashville. We revive our characters, and this was very early in the recording of that podcast. And I think it was 2011.
Yeah.
2011.
Right.
We're recording in Juicebox's house in his dining room.
Yeah.
I remember that, and it was we didn't have professional microphones. We were probably all sitting around like a recorder, trying to get those episodes out. But I remember one of the first movies we ever reviewed.
The first episode, we
never released it.
right.
We thought it was so bad, and the sound quality was so bad, and our representation of the movie was not good. But that movie was called Animal Kingdom.
Yep, test run on Animal Kingdom, and so we're at the Kentucky Derby that year, and there's
Drunk.
Extremely, and there is a horse named
Animal Kingdom.
Animal Kingdom.
It was running in the Kentucky Derby, and if I'm not mistaken, it was like a 60-1 horse.
Something.
It was an insane odds, and I remember Oldboy and I, who was Sugarcane back in the day, he looked at me and he said, it's a sign.
Right.
We've got to bet on this horse.
Got to.
So we pulled together probably $25. I think between us.
It was that or buying another mint julep, and that was all we had.
That's it. So we forewent.
We forewent
the mint juleps, and we decided to take that money and place it down on Animal Kingdom. We knew that there had to have been a shot.
Yep.
We hit,
yes, and we didn't place it. We did. I don't know if we bet on Animal Kingdom to place,
win or show.
But whatever we did, we fucking got him.
We hit.
And you would have had to bet him either to win or across the board.
Okay, then it was.
Because
I think it was to win because, man, we walked out of there with a pocket full of cash.
Yes.
And we were daddy warbucks.
I don't know how much. I can't translate it, and you guys, I'm sure, don't remember. But on a $2 bet, Animal Kingdom paid out $43.
Okay, so $25. We were rolling.
We had a couple $100.
We did. And I remember going to the bar and just thinking, this is the greatest idea ever. How about we buy drinks for everybody? And all of a sudden, all of that money was gone. But for that split second, we were on top of the world.
Well, and that's what it's all about. That's why you go to the Derby. You know, you drink way too many cocktails, and then you hopefully hit a horse.
Then you wake up the next day and wonder where all your money went.
Yeah, and your ID sometimes.
A lot of times.
And your necklace.
So that was a very fun Kentucky Derby. If I'm not mistaken, and a lot of you that attend regularly or attended that year specifically, if I remember this correctly, wasn't that the year that we got Osama bin Laden?
Yes.
And we found
it was that same weekend.
It was the
same.
Was
that Sunday or something. Yeah.
Yeah. So we got Osama bin Laden, and we'd been looking for him. I say we. The country had been looking for him forever to pay for his crimes, and we finally got Osama bin Laden. We get the news. I'll never forget this. We get the news, and we're at a concert. Driving back from Alice in Chains. Is that right? That was at
yes.
the Woods at Fontenelle.
I was at home. I don't know. Was that? No, I wasn't there.
Okay. So
but yeah, it was that same night though.
It was the same night. And
you weren't at an Alice in Chains concert?
No, I don't.
Very
I was probably too hungover to go.
Yeah. So we go to the Kentucky Derby, and my fond memory is the ever-ringing sound of these guys selling these T-shirts.
It was Stone Temple Pilots. It wasn't Alice in Chains.
It was Stone Temple Pilots.
Yeah,
that's a big difference.
Yeah, it's a big. Yeah.
So we go to the Kentucky Derby, and all of a sudden you arrive on the grounds, and you just hear this yelling, and they're saying, "Gotcha, bitch." And I was like, what is going on? I mean, there are 50 people yelling, "Gotcha, bitch." And I look, and this guy's holding a white T-shirt with Osama bin Laden's likeness in crosshairs in the middle of the shirt, and it just says "Gotcha, bitch" on the shirt.
Yeah.
So the entire Kentucky Derby that year, that is all we're yelling. That's all you hear everybody anywhere yelling because it was kind of a joke. And I was also thought, who in their right mind would ever purchase that T-shirt? And there were 50 people with bags of them.
I bet they sold out.
You think they sold out?
Yes.
Damn.
There's a
dude.
reason they were selling them there.
God, I'll never forget that. But there's so many fond memories of the Kentucky Derby that you can think of.
Let me jump in. I want to touch on that a little bit because I've been to the Derby 5 times and things get blurry. Let's just say that. Like
Very.
things get blurry while you're there. So it's hard for me to just like nail down one specific time that was like a good time for me or one specific thing. For me, like every year that walk up to the Derby, especially if like for the last few years that we went, we always got a school bus, like a giant school bus, picked us up in the Highlands in Louisville, would take us to the Derby. So you walk, like a half a mile to Churchill Downs. On that walk is where those vendors that Bucky was talking about are, but there's also all the religious groups that are there, like yelling at you and telling you you're going to hell, and just like you're walking through a gauntlet of nothing but like people that are selling T-shirts with Osama bin Laden's head or something else that's like equally as crazy for whatever's going on that year, and then the people that are yelling at you that you're going to hell. Wow. And I remember walking through there. This is one of the early, not the first year that I went, but one of the earlier times that I went. And Dana's friend Nikki was just like, who is the nicest, kindest person, like she's so
Sure.
awesome. So we're walking through and these people, like the religious people, are yelling that we're going to hell. And she walks up towards one of them. She's like, I just want to give you a hug. Like, this is crazy. It's so, she was just being a total hippie. And another one of those people stepped in and like got between them and was like, no, you don't touch him. Get away from him. It was like, what the hell is going on? Like it was
Right.
Very
intense.
territorial.
And they're doing the thing like where they're, I guess they're allowed to be on the grass area, wherever the vending area is. So they're right up to the edge of that vending area, just like yelling at you as you're walking on the sidewalk. Like it's intense.
Do you think that
That's before you even go into the Derby.
And you mentioned people selling T-shirts from Relevance. Do you think if we would have gotten to go to the Kentucky Derby this year, it would have been nothing but Joe Exotic and Carol Baskin T-shirts?
Oh, hell yeah. Hell yeah.
Yeah, I think they could have capitalized on that.
Although, without the coronavirus, would Joe Exotic have become as popular as he is? I feel like the only reason that thing hit, well, not the only reason, but the main reason that thing hit is because people were forced to be at home right when it came out.
That
Right.
is true.
Yeah. I don't think so, man. I think people would be like, you know what? I'm gonna go outside instead of watching this.
Yeah, but now there's plenty of Joe Exotic shirts, so
Yeah. So you can attend a Kentucky Derby. It can go one of several ways, but more specifically the weather. I know that when you go to Kentucky Derbies, normally it tends to rain at some point during the day.
Yep.
Maybe for a few minutes, maybe all day. My first Kentucky Derby ever, I think, was, like Dana mentioned, 2004, when Smarty Jones won. It was the first one I went to, and it rained so hard that year that there was one point where I couldn't open my eyes. It was raining so hard. And I was in the infield, no cover. I wasn't in the bathroom.
snatching chains.
I remember leaving that Kentucky Derby, and if you've been to the Derby and you've been to the infield, you know how you get there is underneath the track. And that's underground tunnel that gets you from one to the other. I remember leaving that year, and the water in that underground tunnel was up to your waist. There were people swimming in it. It was the most disgusting thing I've ever encountered in my life.
That
Party juice.
That was the first one I've ever been to, and it almost turned me off. Turns out I've been to 7.
Dude, that's the party juice in Bourbon Street, like you know what I mean. Like
yes.
that's why I don't wear sandals.
Sludge.
But you just walked waist deep in. I guess you had to.
You had to. There was
I would
no
say
way
New
out.
Orleans party gravy is worse than Derby party gravy.
Oh, for sure. But still,
Yeah.
waist deep, dude.
There was no way out.
A lot of yeast infections coming out of
Yeah.
that.
Did you wear a condom?
Oh. to walk out of the Kentucky Derby. I'm going to slip this on real quick. Another thing about the Kentucky Derby is it is notorious for the city of Louisville, which is mainly a Catholic city, to keep their bars open all night long.
Yeah, that day before Derby especially. Like other bars, I feel like it's a little more flexible, but yeah, the day before Derby, forget about it.
They don't
A lot of
close.
bars don't close.
God bless you if you can drink all day at Derby and then go out
All night.
and go all night, because I feel like I've been well seasoned in the past and I can't fucking hang, dude.
I can remember, like, I went to the Derby, drank all day, then went and met up with some friends, and I'm like still wearing like nicer dress clothes or whatever, and I feel like I feel like I'm holding it together pretty well. And then at one point in the night, someone's like, "Are you all right? Are you like you look really disheveled?"
Yeah.
You're on the-
just like
you're on the
look down,
verge.
my tie's barely on. Like, but meanwhile in my head, I'm like, I'm nailing this.
Yeah, I feel great.
And then you look at the clock and it's 6:30.
It's all perception.
Well, it was a little later than that. This was, the Derby doesn't run until like 6:30, so
Oh,
this was
okay,
probably
yeah.
10 p.m. or something.
But
Okay. But that is
Juicebox,
pretty good.
Juicebox brings up a good point because when you go to the Kentucky Derby, especially if you're a newbie, you are constantly thinking about what clothes you're going to wear. Everybody tries to outdo everybody else. It's nothing but seersuckers and hats. I remember, and I've got a tip for you guys out there. Don't wear white pants to the Derby. I have done that before, and I'll never do it again. It was the only time I got these director pants from Express, and they were nice, and they were expensive, and they looked great, and that was the only day I ever wore them.
See, I don't think I could ever wear white pants ever.
Especially
They
not
would-
after Labor Day.
Wow. But that's a good note. Thank you. I'm putting that in my journal right now.
No white pants at the Kentucky Derby.
No.
In fact, if I go back and I'm not in the box that, potentially we could still have, we don't know yet, but we don't want to get our hopes too far up. But if I go back and it's on my own dime, there's a good chance I'm not dressing up.
No, that's what I've decided. And Dana and I have talked about this a little bit. Like, we haven't been the past several years ever since Barrett was born. And I didn't even go the couple years before that because, man, it is taxing. Like, it's fun, but it's a lot.
Yeah.
And about half the time, Dana and I would end up getting in an argument towards the end of the day because, you've both been drinking all day.
Yeah.
And you've been close all day long.
Yeah, and it's chaos. It's draining. But we've both been kind of kicking around the idea of going back and going to the infield because the infield is such a party shit show. Like, you don't need to dress up. You can wear some comfortable shoes. You can wear some comfortable clothes. You don't need to worry about looking nice. Like, it's just a free-for-all. I mean, you go in there, you watch people running across the tops of the porta potties. People are throwing beer cans at them, trying to knock them off. Like, it's an event
Sounds like
nothing
Burning
else.
Man.
Yeah, yeah. I don't know. I don't have like I said, all my stories kind of end up blending together. I just want to give a second shout out to something Dana mentioned, that down the field lounge.
Yeah. Down the
Stretch.
Down
lounge.
the stretch.
Down the stretch lounge. That little like trailer that people haul into the parking lot there out in front of Churchill Downs. It is the place to go if you're going to the Derby.
That is. If it happens this year, again, we're still hopeful. We wanted to officially round out this podcast. We want to bring it to have closure is what we're looking for.
Let me throw out a real like, we've kind of been joking around and half serious about this. Well, let me throw out a serious question. If the Derby does happen on September 5th or whenever, are you guys actually going to go?
I mean, if we still have those tickets, I'm definitely going.
If we're in a box, I don't know if I want to be out in a big crowd.
Are you asking a
But see-
morality question right now? Do I think that I should be with 120,000 people 4 months after?
That's what I'm getting at.
What we're
Sloshing
To me-
around in party juice. And,
Yeah, to me, I thought of that makes me a little uneasy, but I don't know. Like, have I just been brainwashed by the media, or like?
But you see all these memes, if you've done this, you're immune to the coronavirus. I think if you've been to the infield and you've been in a situation like I have, walking through that tunnel with waist deep water, I might be immune.
Okay.
Are they going to have us stand 6 feet apart in the infield? That would be odd.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing. Like, are they going to limit attendance or anything, or like getting it? I mean, there's no avoiding being just right on top of everybody else inside of that place.
It
maybe
won't
not this year, but next year, maybe not this year. I might sit this year out.
So
Yeah,
you wouldn't go? Because I think if you have your own box and all rules are
different.
open, like you can go, we can all be together.
But
if
it
we
doesn't
want.
matter even if you have a box, you're still gonna have to be around a shit ton of people to
True.
get to that box. Like, it's not like you're walking through some VIP exclusive thing. Like, you're still
on
in
an
the mix.
elevator.
Yeah,
True.
And then you get on an elevator and go up to your box where there's still a ton of people.
Can you see into the future and imagine that if handshakes really went away and we went to butt slaps or good games, Kentucky Derby would be a whole different thing.
Oh, dude, there'd be so many butt slaps.
So many.
I don't even know what you're implying.
I
Yeah.
don't know. But before we get out of here, I do want to tell one more funny story from the Kentucky Derby that involves Oldboy. We've touched on it a couple of times. I do remember standing in the paddock a few years back, and we were there together, and it was a great time, and we'd been drinking quite a bit, and he went off. sometimes he goes off for walks or roams, and he comes back and he's like, Bucky, and I'm like, what? And he goes, dude, look over there. And I looked over there, and he goes, I am not lying to you, Bucky. That is Reggie Jackson. And it was the same split time.
It's Reggie.
I looked over my shoulder, and I was like, I don't think that's Reggie Jackson. And this goes back to, what you see when you're intoxicated or if I've had a few.
I'm gonna tell you a secret. I knew it wasn't Reggie Jackson.
So you were walking around the paddock trying to convince people.
And I just walked up to this dude. I was like, oh my God, dude, Reggie Jackson. And this guy went right along with it. He's like, yep, I'm Reggie. I was like, all right, dude, we're getting a fucking picture with Mr. October.
And here is the funny thing, is he literally convinced people to take pictures with this guy, which we
people.
still have a few. I think I'll try to post that on our socials because it does bring some funny to a not so fun time right now.
God,
That's
great.
hilarious.
That's great.
That's awesome. Well, we hope that we get to attend the Kentucky Derby on September 5th. If not, it's not that big of a deal, other than the fact that it will be the first interrupted, consistent Kentucky Derby to happen ever.
Yeah, which
So
is crazy.
you're saying that the coronavirus can take down the Kentucky Derby, but the Great Depression, Civil War, or World War didn't. But this will, and that's pretty insane to think about.
Yeah.
As always, wherever you are, whether you're at your home, at your work, listening to this in your car, when you get a chance, please take 30 seconds to go on wherever you're listening to this podcast today and like us, rate us, tell your friends about us.
Tell your mama and them.
Not your family, but tell your friends about us. Go on our socials, like us there. Send us messages, what you want us to cover, coming up. We will be happy to do that. Through all this sad time right now, we're going to continue to bring you these episodes every single week. We're not going to stop until we are forced to stop. We hope you guys enjoyed listening. If you don't have children,
Have one.
have one.
Catch up.
Yeah, we want you to know what we go through.
Yeah, the fear.
Run,